Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be fixing a couple of things, dragging some stuff over from the server back into the repository, like the Nginx files, the systemd files, fixing data protection keys, setting that up in the database, etc. Right? So let's go ahead and get started. First thing that I want you to do is I want you to connect to your machine, and we're just going to extract some of this configuration down into our repository. So let's go ahead, start with the Nginx config. This is going to be an etc Nginx, and let's see what do we got here. Sites available. Let's list in here, and then we will cats app rawcoding.net, right? Let's go ahead and grab this whole thing. We will come back to our application here. What we're going to do is you can put this in your project. Really, it doesn't matter that much. We can add some hidden files and maybe put it in the GitHub's folder, although I think I'm just gonna go ahead and there is no option to add a folder here. So let's go ahead, open this in the Explorer. I'm gonna add a new folder here that we'll call something like hosting. We can go ahead, close that, and now that we have here, let's go ahead, add a new file. We'll just call this app.rawcoding.net, so same as our configuration file in the terminal here, right? So let's go ahead, open this up. Yep, this can be just a regular text file. We can clean this up a little bit, leave this as it is. You can see all of this stuff generated here by the certbot, so just leave it as it is. We will do a little bit of taking this out into its own separate configuration. So actually, before you start this tutorial, it may be worth going to your domains in the Linode console and adding an API as a separate host name, right? This sort of setup is fine, but I guess I don't want to teach the wrong thing of where if you have many requests coming in and if you have a regex pattern matching here, it could take a toll on performance from the Nginx side, right? Because it has to run regex against every request that you're performing here to match in either of these, right? So we're just going to take that out into its separate configuration. So just make sure on the Linode side, you do have another record here that is going to have host name of API, and we're going to just adjust some other things in order for that to work, right? Nice, get that out. Let's go ahead, get a copy of this. We will just set this to API rawcoding.net. Okay, press OK. Let's go into app rawcoding.net, and here we are just going to cut this location, and let's just put it here, something like this. We are then going to go back here, and here we will delete the server, all the server stuff, and the location for this bit here, and then we can just remove this regex here, put the slash, and then change the API here. We might need the what's it called, the port 80 bound here, but for now this is generally fine. Okay, and we will let server bot regenerate all this stuff for this API configuration as well, and then we're gonna re-update our repository, right? Just leave this like this here. So now that we got that, let's go ahead, clear this, and what we're going to do is we're gonna go ahead and list in etc systemd. We had system folder, and in the system folder we would have our tricking library API service. Let's go ahead, cat that, and we want to store this in our repository as well. Okay, so let's go ahead, create a new file. We can come back here, we can see what is it called, trickinglibrary.api.service. Copy that, paste that here, press OK, come back, copy the contents, put them here, and that's it. Just save it, and now it's in your repository as well. You know what you're using for hosting. If you need to change it later on, you do so as well, right? And later on, I'm not going to show you how to integrate it as part of your build and stuff like that, so we're doing a really simple setup. And now let's do the same with our app. Okay, so let's go ahead, come here. We'll set the app here. Again, just actually, I don't think we'll need to take the file. Let's come here, set the app. We'll press OK. Let's come back here. Let's grab this bit that we have here, and let's put it here. I want to actually remove these bits because I've taken a look and I found a way to actually set the .environment file that we will be pushing later on. So the thing that we removed with .env.production, I am going to be putting this back in here. So let's create an env.production. We will grab all these environment files. We are going to put them back in here. Let's delete the equals environment in here. Okay. And for the browser side, what we're actually going to be calling is http api.rawcoding.net. Now that that's done, the last bit that we will need to do is when we're starting our application, we will need to, instead of npm run start, let's go into our package JSON, and where we had the start, Ctrl-D to copy the line, and we'll just say -prod. And on the end here, what we're going to do is specify a .env parameter where we're going to supply the name of our file, right? .env.production. And this will bring in this .environment configuration for our production build, okay? So now this configuration is better part of our source code rather than being defined as part of the environment variables for its service. I feel a lot more comfortable with that, and just to make sure that we are going to be running this start-prod script here, just replace the start with start-prod. With those in place, let's go ahead, close this, and the next bit that I want to take care of is the thing that we did in our nuxt.config.js. So the bit here that I've put in for the configuration, this is not entirely correct. So let's go ahead, grab this server bit, and what we're going to do, we're going to cut it. Let's put it out here. We will put this, extend, let's take about this much. We'll keep the extend there, but what we want to do is we want to, instead of export default, let's create const config. We will assign it here, and before it was a server property on here, so we will say if process env node underscore environment, I think it's called, and that's probably wrong. I think it's process.env node env, right? So I think that is about it. Let's go ahead and set development. So only when we're in development do I want to assign a config.server here. Okay, let's format this a little bit, and then we want to export default config. Okay, so that's the config that we're exporting. Again, this is the configuration is just a JSON object or a JavaScript object, JavaScript object, and we're just gonna assign a property only when we're in development. So that's what this bit is about. Putting it in here didn't really work. I didn't realize it at the time, but essentially that will be the fix. So if after the previous episode you couldn't run it locally because of this change, now you shouldn't have that problem. Okay, now the last bit that we will need is for when we run our API. We will need to specify the domain for which the cookie will be valid. So in our startup, we will need to, in our authentication, where we are going to be configuring the application cookie, because we're going to have an app raw-coding and API raw-coding, right? So there's going to be two subdomains, and what we want to do is take the cookie and we want to set the domain, right? So we don't want it to be on the api.rawcoding.dev domain all the time. We want to basically say, right, just set it to the root domain and make it valid for all the subdomains. So this is another way how you can achieve single sign-on as well, right? So if you have multiple applications across your subdomains, this is another way to do it, right? This isn't going to work perfectly because we have a development environment and a production environment. So let's go ahead, and in here we'll specify a cookie domain, and for development we'll say localhost. Let's copy this, come here, get the production, put it here, and then grab this from the startup, right? Put it here. And there we go. Now all we have to do is we just gotta grab this value from the configuration. So let's go ahead, come here. We'll take the config, and I think it will be enough to just say we want the cookie domain here, since it will be just a string in the end. Okay, and this will extract the cookie domain. The last bit to take care of is, I don't know if I said the last bit previously, but no, this is actually the last bit, right? So with the data protection keys, so I think we've seen this on when we restart our application. What happened is our sign-in session has actually just went ahead and disappeared, right? So for what we need to do is actually take the key that is used to secure the cookies, so encrypt them, decrypt them. We need to persist that key. There are a couple of ways that you can do it. You can do it to the file system, and you can do it to a database, right? I've been using the file provider one for quite a while, so let's actually take a look at what it looks like. So, for example, you're going to have services, the data protection, so something like that. You are going to set application name, so this is going to be tricking library, and on the end you're going to say something like persist keys to file system. Well, you will need to supply a directory info and some kind of path, kind of how we have with our temporary videos. So you can do this. I will comment this out, and instead we're gonna add a, what's it called, entity. We're gonna need a package, I think, for this, if I remember correctly. Entity data protection. Let's just look for data protection, and maybe entity framework core. Yep. So this API right here, right? We haven't updated this to 5.0, have we not? No, we haven't. So grab 3.1.9. I think that's the bit that we have across our application. I think you can try upgrading to .NET 5, by the way. I don't think you're gonna suffer too much, but go ahead and add this package to your API here. Let's go ahead and install this. Okay, so once we have this, we should have an persist keys to DB context, and here we specify our DB context. Now, because this has to do specifically with the identity and authentication and persisting that sort of state, what I am going to do is I am going to create my own DB context for identity DB context, and I will kind of unify it with the thing that we need for the tables for this data protection thing to work as well. Okay, so in here we can go ahead and add a identity DB context. I think it should work just fine. If we mess up with the names, you know, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? So we inherit from that namespace, and as well, what we want to do is we want to inherit from an iData protection key context, right? So there it is. Go ahead, press enter, and this is what you're gonna get, right? So now you have a table where, I mean, your data protection keys are gonna be stored. Make sure you add a setter here, and let's just double check the users and the roles that are gonna be used, right? So identity users are still users, identity role is still a role, and the key is still a string, so that is all fine. Last bit to not forget is the DB context options that we're gonna get passed here. Identity DB context options. Just make sure that we're passing these to the base. All right. So everything that you're gonna configure in your startup file, this is gonna get passed down here. Let's go ahead, grab our identity DB context. Let's go ahead and make sure that this is the one that we're supplying here. So maybe somewhere, where would this be coming from? ASP.NET Core identity. Let's try to remove this namespace, see how much breaks. Add default token providers, identity users, and yeah, that doesn't particularly look happy. So let's bring this back. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename this to app API identity DB context. Right? I think that's just going to be overall easier. You know, just don't have overlapping names. It's not a hard thing to do. Let me close that package. I don't know why that thing is still there. Right, so persist to your API identity DB context. We have the API identity DB context here. Now that our API identity DB context is in our assembly, I don't know, I'll state like 10 more times. API identity DB context. We no longer need this option essentially. Okay, so we no longer need to specify a migrations assembly as well. Okay, now that we have changed this, let's just make sure that we go into our data layer, script MD, and we will take our API identity DB context. and we will just set it here, right? So we are just gonna regenerate the script and yeah, see what happens, right? We'll see what it takes to update this. I think we will be okay with just removing these migrations and regenerating them and just picking out what we need to apply. So let's go ahead and just do that. We'll delete that. Let's go ahead, grab this bit here. We're gonna open up our API, close that bit. I don't think, I'm not even sure. I don't know why I closed it. Felt like closing. Let's go ahead and initialize it. Okay, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and generate our script. That looks good as well. Let's just come back here to our thing, just interact with it because at the moment it's already frozen out. So that's good, right? So we have the script. Let's go ahead and take a look at it real quick. Throughout of it, it should be looking just like you should see some tables: ASP.NET roles, ASP.NET users, oh, data protection keys. Okay, cool. So we will need this bit. Let's go ahead and again, you can either grab the whole bit or you can just grab this bit here and just keep looking through bits: ASP.NET role users, logins, yada yada, some other thing here, role name, user claims, user login, yeah, okay, and apply the migration that we're going to add at the end, right? So, and again, I'm just going to say, because it's still sort of the development stages of the application, you can go ahead, scrap the database and regenerate it again, right? Or if you're already wanting like sort of a production flavor, just go ahead and just create the table this way, right? So this is the SQL that you will need. Let's go ahead and close everything else. So yeah, I think it all should be good. So data protection keys, the server the HTTPS configuration to work on your development environment locally and disable it for when we build it for production. The .env.production file to be used when we go to production, and the raw coding domain for the cookie to be used to be still available on the app domain. Okay, so those are the primary changes that we're applying here. So let's go ahead and commit this. I will go ahead, grab all of this stuff. I am going to exclude the script SQL. I don't want to commit this bit. Let's go ahead and say, I can't remember which episode this is going to be. This is going to be episode 66. So episode 66, hardest part is coming up with a name. So last fixes. That will be the name of the episode, last fixes, right? Okay. So that's all there. Let's go ahead and push it. Once that's pushed, let me go ahead and go on GitHub. Should have this prepared by now, but tricking library. Let's go ahead, get this open. Security warnings. Make sure you ignore those. You can apply them if you want to, and not that big of a deal. Let's go ahead, deploy these. Wait for these to be over, and then we're gonna go ahead and jump back to the terminal. So these two are now pushed. Let's go ahead, open up the terminal, and what we're going to do is we're just going to reconnect to our machine. Let's go ahead, clear this, and the first thing that we want to do is we want to change the system D file for our Nuxtjs application, and then we want to add another Nginx configuration for our API. Okay, so hopefully it isn't a little bit confusing. I feel a little bit confused at the moment for the pieces that I need to do, because I didn't write down a proper plan list for this. I thought like, I'm just gonna YOLO it like half of the episodes. So here I am, right? Don't YOLO, write your steps down, make a plan, right? So sudo v for the app. Let's go ahead, come in here, put in the password, and let's come back to where we have our hosting files. We will take our app service, right? You can go ahead and copy the whole thing, or what we can do is you can just manually amend a little bit, just delete these environment files and exec start. I mean, you can copy the whole line, or you can just make sure that you are adding prod, right? As a good exercise, I'll probably just leave it up to you. Figure out how do you spin up a machine that has already all of this set up, right? I mean, that is a very, very interesting exercise where you're just gonna learn a ton, okay? So once we got that, I think we'll be sudo systemctl daemon reload, right? Reload that file. Before we go further, let's go ahead and go into I don't think I'll need that. ls etc. No, don't list everything. Nginx. What do we have in Nginx? Again, sites available. Let's list this. Okay, so we have only our app in there. Let's go ahead and touch or sudo touch. And I don't know why I was a little bit about that space there, but let's go ahead and touch ourselves a API file, right? So once we got that, let's go ahead and jump back here. Let's put vi, press I for insert, come back here, and let's go ahead and get ourselves this tricking library API service that we've separated. Oh, sorry, no. The api.rawcoding.net config, right, that we've separated. Let's go ahead, paste it in here. Okay, so that is good. Let's go ahead, escape, write and quit. And now that we have those two set up, always with Nginx, actually, wait, hold up, we need the symbolic link file, right? So this will be a little bit easier if we cd into there. So etc Nginx sites enabled, right? So we're in here. Let's go ahead and say make a symbolic link. So again, come out, we'll go into sites available. We'll grab the API, and again, we'll just use the same name. Oh, okay, you know, not a big problem. I'll just copy the whole thing. That's why you don't press Control copy on here. You right click, so you highlight and you right click, otherwise you're gonna end up where I've just ended up. All right, permission denied, not to worry. Sudo ls, just make sure you got all the stuff. Nginx test, again, you're gonna get a big error, everything's fine. -s reload, cool. So that's reloaded, and now our API might be crashing or not, I don't know. We will still have to set up a certificate for that one as well. So first thing before that as well, let's go ahead and switch to Postgres, where we are going to, let's clear all of that, and let's go ahead into PSQL. We will go into tricking library. We can list our tables, but what I want to do here is I want to apply that migration that we had here, right? So create this table right here. So let's go ahead, grab the data protections table. Let's go ahead, paste this in here. You can go ahead, press enter, and again, just do a little \d, and we should have our data protection keys right there. Okay, feeling confident about that. Let's go ahead, exit this, and let's go ahead and give our sudo systemctl. Let's what do we got? All right, what was it? Yeah. Restart tricking library API service, and then we can restart the app service as well. So now what this is going to do is this is going to be using the production, the .env.production file. So if we go into var, tricking library app, what do we have in here? We should have cat .env.production. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So a little bit of a space there, actually. What is that? I think let's take a look, man. No, I don't like spaces, man. That doesn't look good, but okay, it's not that big of a deal. Let's go ahead, close everything else, and let's see if we have everything working more or less. Actually, wait. Certbot. Right, we forgot about certificate. Right. Certbot. Always. Go ahead, grab this guy. And again, same as before, get certbot instructions, Nginx. What machine are we on? Cool. So we already went through most of this setup. Now we just want sudo cert Nginx. Right, let's just go ahead, put this here. And same as before, it already has our email and stuff like that. Now we just want to be able to specify where do you want to generate your, what's it called, your certificate, okay? Okay, so now we have our certificate here as well. Let's go ahead and ls, and we will ls in, or rather sudo, or do we need the sudo? I don't think we need. Let's just cat the API, and here we'll have the file. Let's go ahead and copy this. We'll come back here and let's go ahead and into the API. Oh, not this one, into this one. We'll put it here. And I mean, this is what it looks like now. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and verify that everything is still working. Okay, so coming back here, let's go ahead and take a look at raw, or rather app.rawcoding.net. Should have the application with the previous state in there. Maybe, yeah, let's go ahead and basically, I don't know, what do we want to test? Let's test the authentication bit. So the first part that I'm going to say is, right, we're not redirecting to the correct route. So this is probably something that I haven't actually taken a look at. So in our store for auth, this is where we would be doing our login. So for the login path, what do we say? We say this is our login path, which is not entirely correct. So for env.production, what our login and logout path will be is actually going to these two, like, because it's a different domain now, this is actually what it's going to be. Okay, so let's go ahead, copy this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here. We're going to sudo v into var tricking library app and .env.production, right? And I mean, we can do the same. Let's go ahead and just maybe copy this bit here. We're going to press insert. We don't need to hard copy the whole thing. We know this is what we're going to redeploy. And generally for development environments, kind of like this one, I would consider this staging. This is not entirely production. And I mean, once you're working for a real company, you do not bop onto the server and just change the configuration there. You redeploy, you make sure you basically first deploy and you test the configuration on staging, and then you go to the live development environment with the configuration already predefined there. And if you fail, you redeploy again. All right, so this is okay for your own meddling. Okay, so we've done that. What we will need to do is we will need to restart the app for it to read the .environment.production file, right? Let's go ahead, come back here. We'll come back here and we'll just wait for this to reload. So that looks fine. So that looks a little bit messed up. Let's go ahead and take a look at sudo systemctl API and status. See if that's running. So looks like we have a bit of a exception there, right? So same as how do we look at the logs previously? So sudo cat var log syslog, and then we'll grep API, all right? And you can put tracking library library API, but that's not too important. Zoom out a little bit to see the full stack trace, and here we'll see permission denied for table data protection keys. So basically, if you remember how we grant our user permission to all the tables, we want to do this again, essentially. So we created a new table. We haven't given our user permission to that table. I'm wondering if there is I'm not going to look at it now, but there is probably an option to give the user just a permission to the database, which I'm not aware of, right? So let's go ahead and connect to our tracking library API. Hopefully, from the lessons learned in the past, you have already copied down this command, put it somewhere in a note. What's it called? I would recommend Microsoft Notes or whatever it's called, to just kind of like put the well-known commands that you need into sections so you can search and browse, you know, your things. And yeah, so just general note-taking skills are going to be important here when working with these types of technologies, right? So grant all privileges to tables in this database, all good, right? So again, let's go ahead and quit this. Let's exit as this user. We can go ahead, clear the console, and we can try again, right? So let's go ahead, give this a refresh, and there we go. So we can make it here. So let's go ahead and sign in as admin. All right, so signed in as admin there. Let's go ahead and give this a refresh so it doesn't look like it's recognized in there. Is that the previous console or new console? That was the one. the old console, right? Let me take a look at, this is a little bit awkward to look at. Let's look in Google, right? Come here, and again, I'll just log in. Okay, never. So cool, we do not get a cookie on our app.rawcoding.net. So let's go ahead and take a look at this, right? Let's see here, we do not have anything. If we go to -API, or we can even just go to, let me get rid of this mobile screen. Let me middle mouse click. Okay, let's just copy this and we'll just put it here, so just so we have two different screens that we're looking at, right? So refreshing this, definitely don't have anything. If we take a look at this, do we have the cookie here? We do not. So for some reason we're not signing in. So let's go ahead and take a look at the logs again, right? And let's see, it doesn't look like it is persisting our key here unless it's still denied permission. So what time is it now? 16:34:35. Another way that we can take a look at this is, let's say if we want a stream of logs, right? We'll do tail-f, right? And these are latest logs. So let's say we got that. We'll open this website here, and we're just gonna give this a refresh, right? No new logs are coming in, that's fine. Let me go ahead and zoom this out a little bit. Maybe it will be a little bit easier to see. Let's go ahead and sign in again. So clearly something isn't working. I guess live debugging session incoming, so brace yourselves, right? How do you find out what is wrong, right? So usually what you want to take a look is the network traffic. Let's go ahead, again, back to the login here. You want to go ahead and preserve your logs, right? So the logs here are kind of useless, so we can exit that. Let's go ahead full screen here, and we primarily want to be taking a look at the network tab. Let's go ahead admin, log in. We will just clear this, and again, make sure you have preserve log. We're going to log in. So there's going to be a bunch of stuff here. So what do we have? Primarily, I'm looking for the set cookie header, right? So here we go. Here is our account. We scroll down here. Let's take a look at the set cookie header. ASP.NET Core, identity application, yada, yada, yada. A little bit towards the end, we're going to see the expiration time and rawcoding.dev. Okay. So this is a bit of a problem when you have multiple domains that are, you know, with similar endings. I have .NET, I put .dev, you know, a bit of a faff. Right, let's go ahead and into the production right here. We're just going to change this to .NET. And again, to avoid the redeploying and to kind of, you know, just wasting a little bit of time there, what I will do is I will, where did I have this? Sudo v, right? I'm just going to go ahead and added my app settings production.json file. I'm going to cut the video here. I'm going to make the same change, and I'm just going to clear the console because it does contain some of my secrets there, right? But just be aware that's what I'm doing. You can achieve the same result by changing the configuration if you even run into this problem, right? You can change the configuration and redeploy your application. But okay, so I've done that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to restart my API service. Oh, that's a status. Control C to exit, and we're going to restart. Okay, so restarting that, let's go ahead and try this again. Okay, so coming back here, let's go ahead, give this a refresh, turn off the preserve log because, I mean, that could get quite annoying really fast. So let's go ahead, try to sign in. There we are. Admin. Cool. There we go. So there it is, signed in. Are we still allowed to do the things that we're allowed? Let's go ahead and check this out. Use my email. Invite. Looks like something's failed. Let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, don't know what's wrong. Again, let's go ahead and take a look at the logs. Let's cap this first. I understand this might be a little bit annoying, but I think it could be quite important to know how to figure out what's going on, right? So application is down, shutting down, succeeded. Now listening, and yeah, it doesn't seem like we again have any sort of exception. I would want to know what the hell just happened. So looks like we had a no content result. So let's go ahead and take a look at our user controller. Like, why on earth, a user or admin controller, why on earth would we get a no content back? Because rather what I would be looking to see is the link one, right? So /API admin moderators. That seems to not be happening. We are authorizing with the admin, and yeah, we just get a no content. That is weird. Are we posting the correct thing? And doesn't seem okay. So this looks. What do we get anything in the console? So course issue. We are not allowed to access our API from this domain. Again, this is quite easily amendable. Let's go ahead and fix this up. I didn't actually account for this issue. Let's go ahead, close all of this stuff. This will need a redeploying because I don't feel like going and editing pulling out a hex editor and editing the code right there, right? Anyway, we leave this one in because this is what our backend Nuxtjs server is going to be doing. And then we're going to say if environment is production, what we want to do is we also want to go ahead and copy this services, add another course urgent with policy Next.js app prod. Let's go ahead and see where we define this. Let's call this prod and for production. And actually, you know what? That doesn't need that much. What we're going to do is we're just going to allow origin of this, and that should be fine. So let's go ahead, put this here, .net, make sure that we get that in there. And there we go, right? So we just specify these origins by default. It's for production, this is for development. If you are going to be setting up this domain for local development, I mean, that's going to be even easier for you, right? So that's partly what a lot of the DevOps is about, of being able to set up your cloud environment and then having the same environment locally, or, you know, in space, wherever you're going, right? You make your environment portable. Right, let's go ahead and make this commit as well. So the env API coding and the production configuration. Let's go ahead and say last fixes, right? And I'm gonna keep adding another last for each last fix that we have, right? Because every last fix is the last fix until there is another last fix, right? So it's a fact. It's a fact in time, right? It's facts are bound to time. Okay. Doesn't matter as long as I say the last thing that I say is smart, right? Just take your API, build it again, right? And I mean, might as well deploy the Nuxtjs application at that point if you want to. I mean, if you're probably not actually no, with the course you are struggling with this issue, so you will need to redeploy. Welcome. All right. While this is frozen, you can put a couple of enters in here. Make sure that that's not freezing. Just go into your home directory and prepare the command. So sudo system ctl restart. What do we got? Tricking. Oh, I think I listed maybe a little bit too many services. Tricking library API service. Right. So get that ready to be restarted. Right. And now let's take a look at this. And yeah, once this is done, I'm going to come back and we're going to do the restart. Okay, that's done now. Let's go ahead and do the restart. One thing that I'm expecting is for my authentication session to actually not drop here. Okay, so let's go ahead, give this a refresh on the admin page, and you can see I'm still signed in, which is perfect. It is really good, right? Because we restarted the service and it's using the keys from thingy, from the database that we've connected, right? Let's go ahead, give this another invite. There it is. Love it. I'll pull this off screen, but maybe I'll just open the email just in case you're like, oh man, he's not actually getting the email, right? Well, yeah, I am, right? Look at this, right? What's the date today? Today is 13/12/1650. Yeah, this is the email. Let's go ahead, get in here. So what do we want? We want all, and I don't know, super secret password. No, that's I don't want that. Oh my god, I'm running out of passwords. No, that's never gonna pass. Okay, there we go. Register, right? Are we a moderator? We are a moderator. Cool. So the invites, the email, send grid, everything's working. There we are. We can have like is activated or whatnot. You know, extend this in any way that you want. Okay. So there it is. This should still run locally as well. So let's go ahead and make sure that it does. So let me go ahead and close this. npm run dev. I'm gonna run this locally. .NET watch for the API. What I will do is I'll actually enable this to run from a in-memory database for local. For the DB context, right, and for my right, and .NET watch run, and yeah, the reason I'm testing it locally is because if we keep the previous change for how we set the HTTPS configuration here, it wouldn't work. So just making sure at the end of this episode everything still works as expected, right? So localhost 3000 HTTPS, right? That's our application there being built. Let me go ahead and close these things on here, the GitHub and the Linode console. Let me actually check the console. Okay, so it was a good idea to check it, right? So what's the problem? Identity users, I think, actually, wait, where is it? In our program CS, I think in our would be somewhere here. No, we're using that. An identity user, we're using that. What's the problem? Let me .NET Watch run again. Let me double check that we are using dev. Okay, let's actually read the error and see what it's saying. Did I scroll past it? Inner exception 7, inner exception 6. A lot of inner exceptions. Okay, so at the top here, amongst all the inner exceptions, it's basically saying unable to resolve service API identity DB context, and I mean, it's staring me right in the face there because we're registering identity DB context, and really we should be registering this bit here. All right, so let's see if that's going to fix it. All right, so that's there. Let's go ahead and give this a refresh. Okay, and everything seems to be working. Let's go ahead and just quickly give this a sign in. Right, and okay, I'm happy. No errors in the console, no errors in the console. Okay, awesome. All right, so now our application works in production, separated the applications with the API and the app domain. Now you kind of know how to do that and share the cookie between them. And this will be the end of this episode. I'll be committing the last changes for the last fix. But nevertheless, if you enjoyed this series, thank you very much. This will be the last episode officially. After this episode, I am going to add a few more like Docker extensions and stuff like that, see how we can do that. I'm definitely doing Docker. Somebody was asking for Elasticsearch. I'm not sure I'm going to be doing that. If you have any other things that you think, oh, I would like to see how this thing is going to work in this application, because this is already a broader context, right? We have a bunch of problems that we solved. Let's say I want to implement this thing. How would I do it? If it's something very relevant, I will bring it in and I'll show the implementation. Like for example, Docker, it doesn't really necessarily need us to change any code. So it's just a deployment mechanism. I will show how to do that. Anything else you want to take a look at, if I know it, I will try to show you how to do it as well. So make sure you post your requests in the comment section. Any questions that you got there, make sure to like, subscribe, share. I don't know who shares YouTube videos these days, but do it if you enjoyed the series. Tweet about it. Whatnot will help my channel out a lot. There are a lot of people out there who are like struggling to get into the field, full stack development, whatever. Join on my stream, join the Discord, sign up to the Stream Squad role. I have my shop opening up soon. Hopefully when this video drops, the shop is out, and hopefully I'll see you in my other videos.